In this video, we're swapping out the lever system, the calipers, and the hydraulic line on an RS5 series scooter from Roadrunner. Hey guys, it's Steve from Scooter King, and in this video we're going to be swapping out the front lever system on the right hand side, the calipers, and the brake line on an RS5 series scooter from Roadrunner. Now this process actually is pretty similar for most scooters, so you can follow along, but there are a few things that are specific to the RS5 line, and all of the RS5 models, if they have hydraulic brakes, use the same system, so that makes it pretty quick and dirty. And thankfully Roadrunner makes this pretty plug and play. It's a bit tedious unwrapping everything. For those of you that don't know, if you've been following the channel, we were hitting the bike lane a couple weeks back and it punctured the hydraulic line itself, bent the rotor and the calipers. So that's why the entire system is going to be replaced. If you've missed the rotor replacement video, go back and catch that. That was done before this one. Thankfully, Roadrunner makes these parts readily available. You can get them right off their site. You'll need a couple of things to do this with. So the first thing you're going to need, aside from the parts themselves, is some wire, some fairly stiff wire, and we're going to use that to thread the hydraulic line down through the stem. And the other thing is a good set of Allen wrenches. This is super important. It'll keep you from cross-threading and stripping a lot of bolts because they're sized correctly. And you also might need a brake bleeding kit. Now, when you're done with this entire install, depending on whether or not you're on a Roadrunner scooter or another kind of scooter where you have to cut the line, the one advantage of the set that Roadrunner sells off their site is they already come preloaded with mineral oil. And so once you make those connections, you'll see here in a bit, the connections are already kind of pre-bled, but it's always a good idea to have a brake bleeding kit handy if you need it. So in this particular video, we're just going to do the install. We'll cover the brake bleeding part in another video. First order of business is to unwind all the cable wrap around all of the brake lines itself. This will expose each one of the brake lines as well as the electronic quick disconnect. And as we move down to the lower part of the scooter, this is where it's important to remember where the lines are, specifically what the lines are attached to. This can be difficult to remember when you're reassembling, so take a few phone pictures to jog your memory. Next, we're going to remove the brake caliper and pads assembly, and this is just going to pop right off the rotor. We're going to leave the bracket attached to the motor, and we'll just have it hang by the side here. Now it's time to move outside as this gets a bit messy, and you'll notice the new lever has a slight design change. So the new designed lever requires us to slide it onto the handlebars, but the older designed lever actually doesn't. We can just undo the bracket, so we'll take the end cap off here, and this will allow us to unscrew the old brake lever assembly. But we're not going to remove the brake lever assembly completely. We're going to leave it snugged up because we're going to remove the quick disconnect wire that tells the controller the brake lever's been depressed. Then remove this little rubber boot, and we need to loosen this brake reservoir nut, and that's tough to do if you completely loosen the brake lever. So you want to leave it a little bit tight on the handlebars first. This will allow us to undo the nut here, and this will leak oil when we pull this out. So it's a good idea to have a towel or rag or something underneath the front stem here just to soak up a bit of that oil, as this can get messy. As we pull this completely out of the brake lever reservoir, we can see the little brass fitting that actually makes the hydraulic connection. This is actually crushed into place when this is assembled. This is actually called a banjo grommet. And we're just gonna set this aside so that it doesn't leak any more than we have to. And then from here we can unscrew the brake lever from the handlebars completely and then just slide it off the end of the handlebars. Next, we're gonna take the old brake line with the banjo nut and that threaded crimping nut attached, and we're gonna cut that. And the reason why is since we have to thread this down through the stem of the scooter, we need this to be a completely smooth surface when we pull it. So since we're not using this at all, we can cut it completely with no problems and simply slide off the old hardware and that cover boot. Next, we're going to move down to our old calipers, and we're going to remove the oil reservoir screw, but this is the one screw that's not an Allen screw, it's a Torx screw. And that'll allow us to drain all the oil out of the caliper system from the line, just so when we're pulling it down through the stem, it's not making a mess. And we definitely don't want to get a bunch of that oil in the stem as well. Then before we do anything else, we're going to take some alcohol and we're going to clean up that old line. We're going to make sure every bit of that oil is removed. Next, we're going to take some electrical tape and the wire we talked about at the beginning of the video, and we're going to tape that to the end of our old brake line here. And this is also why we wanted to get all the oil and everything off there, so we have a nice, secure connection here, because we need to be able to yank on this a little bit. Now that we have the tape and the wire firmly attached to the old brake line here, we want to make sure that there's no real resistance or friction in the stem, meaning there's nothing binding or anything like that. This should easily be able to slide back and forth. I mean, you got to tug on it a little bit, but it should easily be able to slide down through the stem and be able to pull out the bottom of it. And then we can untape our wire there from the old line. And you'll notice we didn't pull the wire all the way through the stem. We left about a foot at the top and the bottom because we'll need that wire to pull the new line through the stem. From here, we'll just wrap the old cable line and caliper assemblies up and put them aside for now, as we might need these for spare parts in the future. Next, we're going to grab our new front line and caliper assembly, as this is all one unit. And thankfully, this comes straight from Roadrunner pre-bled, meaning it's already filled with oil. So it's already pre-sized for the front, and the back comes the same way. It's pre-sized and pre-bled. Plus, the new line has a little eyelet at the top that makes attaching the wire a lot easier. And just like we did with our old cable, we tape our new cable to our wire that we have hanging out the stem, and that allows us to snake it up through the stem and pull the new cable out the top. And that's also why we really make sure that there's just no oil anywhere, because that tape has to be able to get pulled on enough to get the new brake cable all the way up through the stem. You'll get a bag of accessories that includes a new rubber boot, that threaded cinching crimp nut, and a new banjo nut. So once we pull this up to about where we need it to be, we can unscrew that little eyelet, and that exposes our actual brake line hydraulic connector. Like I said before, this is a really fragile connection. Once you unscrew the little eyelet, it exposes the threaded hydraulic connector itself. There's a little plastic protective bushing that needs to be removed. Once you remove that, you can see how tiny these little threads are. So these can't be stripped or crushed in any way, or you won't be able to achieve a pressure-proof hydraulic seal once you put the banjo nut over this. The new lever assembly has a hydraulic plug installed already, and we're going to pre-loosen that to make this a little easier. In addition, we're also going to tighten down our lever assembly so that once we get the hydraulic line attached, we can tighten against it. With the hydraulic line connector exposed, this allows us to thread our little rubber boot as well as the cinch nut connector over the line and the new banjo nut. From there, we loosen the old hydraulic plug completely and slide the new one into that hydraulic line position, and then we put the threaded cinch nut up there and start to screw it into place. This can be a little challenging as there's always a little bit of oil on the line, but you want to get that screwed in most of the way, or at least hand tighten, so that we can go straight to getting the wrench and tightening it the rest of the way. We want to clean up all the oil around the line and the cinch nut here, as this will make tightening it a lot easier. And this requires a little bit of force because you're actually crushing that banjo nut into position. It's actually crushing and creating the hydraulic line seal. So this can take a little bit of force, but it's a lot easier if there's no oil or anything around. Now we can move down to our brand new caliper assembly. This already includes our pads and everything. It's got a pad block in there, so we'll unloosen those and remove that pad block. We'll also take the screws out of our old bracket that's on our swing arm, and we'll remove the bracket from our new caliper assembly, and then we'll just slide the entire thing onto our old bracket. We'll replace our old bracket screws and thread in our new caliper assembly on top of the rotor, cinch everything down into place, and because we didn't actually change the position of the old bracket, the brakes are already pretty close to the ballpark anyway, and we'll do a quick adjustment after we get everything set and tightened back down. One of the last few steps is to reconnect our old brake controller cable to our controller assembly. Simply line up the pins and then press this into place, as this makes a nice secure connection. And one of the last things is to wrap the cables back into their original position with the cable wrap. And honestly, I think this is one of the most tedious things. It's by far and away the most time consuming, and it really does help, like we talked about before, to take a few phone pictures so that you can see which cables got wrapped together. But take your time, go slow, and get it right. It'll look great when it's done. When you first change out your hydraulic lines, you're gonna have a little bit of different, wear pattern on your rotors. So you're gonna it might take a little bit for them to set in. You might have some squeaks and things like that. So just make sure you clean up the rotors with some good quality brake cleaner. and eventually they seat in pretty quickly, and you're back to having that comfortable, secure, and stable ride. So as you can see, it's pretty straightforward, and thankfully Roadrunner makes the process pretty plug and play with the handles, the levers, hydraulic lines, especially because they come preloaded with mineral oil and they're already sized. So in this case, because we did the front, they were already sized. We didn't have to cut anything. We didn't end up having to bleed the line on this particular one. But of course, we'll eventually have to do that, and we'll cover that in a future video. Hey, thanks for hanging out, guys. I appreciate it. If this was helpful in any way, please hit the subscription and notification bells. It really does help keep a channel like this going and growing. Get out there, rip it up, have a great time, stay safe. We'll catch you guys in the next video.